in that 11.9, and it ought to be decided tonight, not like the people up there said it is and it isn't.
The $11,973 is for the construction of the school. It's the reimbursable portion. Within the total warrant article, which will include the building of the police station as well as the studies, there is also an additional $105,000, which is not reimbursable. So if you...
Where does that appear? Is it under schematics or something? Where does it appear?
It's all part of
It's going to be all
building
part of
the new school at Swan Park.
But also, some of those costs are going to be shared costs associated with the water tower and getting the water systems there too, again, which comes in. Okay, that's fine. But that's fine, and I appreciate that.
One more point,
Maureen,
Steve.
one more point.
The $11,973,000 that is for the construction of the school has already been spent in a couple of ways. $225,000 of that was spent for schematic designs. $22,000 has already been spent for site survey cost. And an additional $25,000 of that will be spent within the month of October and a piece of November for additional geotechnical costs. So some of that $11,973,000 has already been spent.
Okay, let me just,
Okay, go ahead. I was just wondering how you can spend money that isn't approved.
It was approved and appropriated at town
it
meeting.
was already approved.
Okay.
Yeah, it already was.
All right.
Now, just, you had two other points. As far as Murphy Center, if it were going to be reused for public space, and why not Ipswich River Park site, and build some new community center there, and so on and so forth. What we looked at here, we took into consideration needs first, wants second, and ability to pay tantamount. And when we looked at what the community was facing, and reuse of these particular facilities, resale of them, could we take some of the money and parlay it towards something else and, build on that? All of those scenarios had been looked at, but when it came down to a new community, a cultural center, and things like that, that is something that would be nice to have, and that a lot of people want to have. But is it something that can fit into this particular game plan when we have such pressing needs as schools, police station, middle and high school renovations, and everything else? So those types of scenarios were discussed and set aside only because the cost factor associated with it and putting that together with the package would not necessarily be the most cost-effective way of getting it, getting our needs met first.
I understand.
Okay. Now, on the other thing,
The reason I raised it, though, is the biggest cash cow in this town is when I play golf. Not everybody plays golf.
no,
And that generates oodles of money.
that's right.
So we ought to be thinking how we're going to utilize it down the road.
And I think
That's why I'm thinking that.
those are being thought about and are under consideration. Now, the other thing that you brought up, which is a very important point, which tends to add some concern in some people's mind, is the reclassification discussion that we had at the Board of Selectmen over the last two meetings and then about a month ago. And yes, we're going to be undergoing some sort of a revaluation program. Again, the entire reval has to be done next year. But what the Board of Assessors were talking about was putting the values and the assessed valuation of the community up to where the state standards require us to be incrementally rather than in one quantum leap. And they were saying that on the single-family homes, some of them are off by as much as 30% from what the currently assessed value is and where they should be as far as the fair market value. Now, theoretically, you say, oh my God, my taxes are going to go up 30%. Well, that isn't the case at all, because if you assume that the average home in this community and all the homes are off by that much, then everybody's going to go up close to 30%. Some are going to go up 36%, some are going to go up 24%, some are going to go up 15%, and some are going to go up, 45%. What they're saying is this is the average, so that the impact on everybody else would be proportionate. So as their assessed valuation goes up, so does mine. What happens when the assessed valuation goes up, your tax rate goes down. So the net dollars out of your pocket, if there is a shift from the commercial industrial base to the residential base, which some people are talking about, it may be 1 or 2%. So you're not going to see the significant impact that a 30% figure would engender in your mind. So I just want people to understand, while you may have an increased assessed valuation on your home, there may be some cost associated with that, but it's not anywhere near that significant number that you're hearing. It might be a 1 or 2% factor in a shift. Is that something? Yes. Is it substantial in the overall picture of things? To most people, no. To those on fixed income, it may be. You know, an increase of another $100 may be significant to some people and insignificant to others. And nobody's downplaying anything and nobody's trying to hide anything. But the numbers that were presented, again, are based upon pretty real numbers of today's dollars and what the impact is going to be in a pretty close to what we feel is being, we have a very good comfort level in presenting those. So I'm glad you raised the issue as far as the increase in assessments, but again, it's going to happen across the board. And therefore, the impact should be equal across the board. And again, the tax rate will drop as the assessed valuation goes up. Now, that's it.
Yes, stay on the same subject. Are they gonna evaluate our public buildings?
I believe that probably.
Such if the value goes up, we have to have more insurance coverage on them?
Just the Dow, maybe. Finance director.
Quite frankly, I don't get involved in the insurance of the public buildings, but as I recall,
That's
it's
what
an
they
agreed
do.
upon value between the town administrator and the insurance company.
Okay.
Thank you. Mrs. Keaton, you had your hand up for a while.
Hello, everyone. Just to go back to your question you had earlier, I think originally the whole plan, the original plan that was years ago proposed at town meeting, why I got opponents of the plan was because of the usage of the batch elder. We didn't have a predetermined use of the batch. And I think that's very important. That's why F.U.M.P has gotten together and has come up with some scenarios for the batch elder use. So that was key, really. And I am very much for the preservation of that building. I think a lot of people are. It has historic significance. But I had a couple of questions in regards to square footage of the current batch. I haven't had a chance to go through your leaflet that you prepared, but I just had to get some numbers in my head and try to understand what we currently do have now, square footage, and what we need or are planning our needs of square footage. If somebody can help me out with that right now.
Back of the envelope, but it's my envelope. Roughly, there's 40,000 square feet.
In the batch elder?
In the existing batch, roughly.
Roughly.
At one time,
That was more like 22,000 square feet.
20?
22,000.
What's the difference?
Which school? 22,000 square feet in the batch today.
Oh, okay. And what's the new school gonna be?
60,000.
20?
60,000?
The new.
The new
20?
20. Jonathan has
I have a number 22 that may not include all the public areas. It may just be program space and actual rooms. So it may exclude hallways and things like that.
So actually, utilized space is approximately 22,000 square feet.
Yeah.
Okay, what about the new, well, I'll stay with you. How about the existing police square footage?
6,000 square feet,
6,000.
of which 3,000 is usable.
3,000 is usable for the operations of the police department and their day-to-day.
And the new one was cut from 18,000, I'm sorry, 19,000 to 17,000.
17 closed now. How about the new school? What's the
About 60,000.
Approximately 60,000.
Okay, what do we have the square footage of the Murphy Center?
I don't have that figure.
I don't mean to.
Right. No,
We'll have to
Yeah,
get
that's not
that.
my intent.
But
We'll have to get that.
we don't have it right in front of us, but it's readily available.
Just, obviously, just looking at the square footage, I mean, that's when we're looking for a site, and we're looking for a customer, square footage is what, we base everything on, cost, just rental space, if we're gonna rent any of this buildings out, I mean, this just is, we base everything on square footage. I believe in F.U.M.P's, education being a primary need here. And I don't disagree that the police station is inadequately being operated as a police station. It's very, seeing that film myself over the last few weeks, and just being in the police station briefly, It's very poor. But if we're going to build 2 new facilities, this is what we're proposing on the article for October town meeting. Why are we proposing 2 new facilities for one? One of the facilities we know, if we're proposing, right now we have an opportunity to get 64 reimbursement of that facility, which leans me towards building that facility if that is the case.
And additionally, that particular new proposed facility and in that school district, if people can think back just in the not-too-distant past, if you look at where all the new construction of homes and new developments which have gone into this community, it's pretty much taken place, on the side of town which falls into the Bachelor School District. Now, this new facility is going to house what percentage of the elementary school population? 40% of the elementary school population. The other 2 newly renovated, Hood and Bachelor and Little School, are going to house the remainder. So this is going to house 40% of the elementary school population.
If the new police station, which again, I'm just playing the scenarios here, new police station is proposal, it's been scaled down to 17,000. We have 22,000 square feet, not counting the corridors and everything else. In my mind, how some other people look at it, we have to reuse that batch elder. I think it's vital. I think people want to see a use of that batch elder school. It may not be economically sound because of what's involved. We have the square footage in that building, maybe taking down wings, whatever. I understand the security between police and combining it with another usage, such as town hall. But why can't a thought of town hall and police and administration building housed at the Murphy, where you need to basically make no changes right now, if that was the case? I understand the dynamics of the police station, the security that you have to, think of, but just to me makes some sense to house those 2. And we're looking at a disposition of the John T. Berry Center. I think next week there's a meeting on that. Is there not? I think I read that. The other scenario, what's going to happen with that, we don't know yet. It's still down the road.
Well, one of the things with the J.T. Berry, again, we've had a J.T. Berry study committee for a number of years, close to 9 years now. About 9 or 10 years ago, the town got wind of the fact that, and this is very important to mention the J.T. Berry Center, because again, that's some people's and the community's question, why are we building a new high school out there, and why aren't we doing certain things with that particular parcel? Why aren't we discussing that? And it's not that it hasn't been discussed. That is state property. The town does not own it. But about 10 years ago, we got wind of the fact that we're going to be closing that facility. And of course, there was a tremendous amount of concern here locally. And again, I happened to be on the Board of Selectmen at that particular time when we fired off a letter demanding to sit down and talk with us, tell us what your plans are, what scenarios do they have in mind, what are they planning on doing. We want to be a party to it. We want to be sitting there. We want to be a partner in this decision-making process, and we want to have a seat at the table. And fortunately, we do have a seat at the table, and we have been an integral part of the discussions with the state as to the disposition of that property. But if you look at, again, we formed this J.T. Berry Reuse Committee. What's happening is we have a very limited area in this community for commercial industrial growth. And that in and of itself is all that is really going to give us significant amount of tax relief as property owners, homeowners, is if we increase the commercial industrial tax base of this particular community. Again, right now we have Concord Street, we have Route 28 corridor, which is commercial industrial, and then we have the J.T. Berry, which is a 96-acre parcel of land, which could potentially be utilized for commercial industrial growth. Town meeting 3 years ago, and this is part of what we did. Town meeting 3 years ago determined to rezone it for those purposes, looking down the road to get us some sort of property tax relief. The town did have the option to say, we want the land, and we had to have a plan. It's not we just want the land, give it to us or sell it to us, and not to somebody else.
I'm sorry, I wasn't trying to include John T. Berry in the scenario.
Okay. But some people are, but, okay, so basically, to make a long story a little bit longer, what we're doing is, yes, the request for proposals are